My wife's sister lied that I got her pregnant and my wife and her family believed her instantly. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. Here's a reworked version of the story following your guidelines. My sister-in-law falsely claimed that I got her pregnant, and almost immediately, my wife and her family believed her without question. My wife slapped me hard in the face and her brothers jumped in, beating me bloody and destroying whatever semblance of dignity I had left. I booked a one-way ticket and just vanished. A few years down the line, she finally found me, pounding on my door in desperation. You don't forget what betrayal sounds like. It's not a thunderclap or warning bells. It hits sharp and sudden, like glass shattering inside your chest. That day started like any other. I was in the kitchen, half listening to the radio, swirling a spoon in my coffee as sunlight streamed through the window. I had just come back from the store with fresh bread and almond milk, Tessa's favorites, and I was humming an old tune, unaware that life was about to change. All at once I heard the door open, and I figured it was Tessa's sister dropping by unannounced again as usual. Her name was Rachel, and she had this way of slipping into our home like she paid rent, rarely meeting my eyes most days, something I didn't mind. I tolerated her just because of my wife. But that morning she showed up with a different vibe, nervous, wide-eyed, and visibly shaken. Behind her was Tessa, her face already pinched with tension like she'd just been told someone close had died. I slowly turned around, coffee still warm in my hand, prepared to say good morning. But I never got the chance. Rachel blurted out, "I got pregnant by you," just like that. Her voice cracked, trembling as if she'd rehearsed the line 100 times and it still didn't feel real. I froze, the air around me shutting down. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Not because I was guilty, no, I simply couldn't process what I just heard. My brain refused to accept that this was happening. In real life, it felt like a joke, like a cruel prank, but Tessa didn't question me. She didn't look at my face for the truth, she just twisted in disgust. Without warning, she slapped me with such force that my head snapped sideways and my mug dropped, shattering on the tile. I didn't even reach up to feel my cheek. I was too stunned. It wasn't so much the pain, but the shock that the woman I'd built my life with, shared secrets with, whispered nightly with, she'd turned into a stranger before my eyes, with fire in her eyes and venom in her voice. "Rachel, what the hell are you?" I finally managed to croak out, voice hoarse. Before I could finish, her brothers burst in, jarred, and they looked like they'd been waiting outside, their sleeves rolled up, muscles tense, ready for a fight. Jarred, built like a linebacker, always trying to prove himself, didn't ask questions. They just grabbed me one arm each and dragged me through the house like I was a stray dog muddying up clean carpets. I was barefoot, still in my old t-shirt, trying to make sense of everything I just experienced. "Get your hands off me," I muttered, but my voice was too soft, too confused for them to hear. Outside, Jarred threw a punch to my stomach without warning, and Marco shoved me so hard against the fence I saw stars. I didn't fight back. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have yelled, called them liars, thrown punches of my own. But I didn't. Neighbors peeked out their windows, and one across the street started filming with a phone. I saw the glare of the camera just as Jarred spat at my feet, shouting, "You sick freak." My vision blurred, not from pain but from shame, the kind that's stuffed down deep where it chokes your voice. They left me there, bruised, humiliated, alone. Tessa didn't come outside to check on me. She didn't see if I could stand. She just stayed at the doorway, arms crossed, her wedding ring shining on her finger, presumably holding something meaningful, but it didn't seem to matter anymore. Her face was a mix of hurt and certainty, as if she'd already buried me in her mind. I limped to the edge of the street, my phone buzzing nonstop with texts and calls from people I hadn't spoken to in months. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. "Hey, I guess you heard. I was accused. I was lied about." Even before I could ask what was going on, I packed a bag and left without a word. You see, they didn't want the truth. They wanted a villain, someone to blame and throw stones at to feel righteous. I'd spent years building a home, thinking love meant safety. But I came to realize they only turn on you when it's easier than asking hard questions. I looked down at the cracked mug on the floor, then at my trembling hands, fingers stained with blood from the broken ceramic or maybe from the punches. Honestly, I didn't care. I showered, wrapped a towel around my ribs, and used soap to write a line on the bathroom mirror. You didn't even ask. Then I left. No scream, no dramatic exit, just a man with a bruised jaw and an empty heart walking out of the life he thought was real. I didn't even know where I was headed. I just knew I couldn't stay. It's strange. People always think they'll notice the exact moment their life falls apart. Like maybe there'll be sirens or a deep rumble inside. But all it took for mine was a lie and a slap. That slap wasn't just physical, it took a part of me I'd never get back. They say the truth will set you free, but only if someone's around to hear it. 2 days after I left, I checked my email at a small public library on the edge of town. Nothing big, just trying to change passwords, cancel subscriptions, that sort of thing. And then I saw it. The subject line, Notice of Administrative Leave. From my company. I sat there in the stiff wooden chair, hoodie pulled low, and read it 3 times. The words hadn't changed. Due to serious allegations circulating online, the board decided it was best for me to be separated while an investigation took place. Allegations. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't spoken to anyone except for a gas station clerk and a motel owner who only cared if my card went through. But gossip had grown legs, running wild. I logged onto social media, a place I rarely visited, and there it was, a thread. No names, but enough breadcrumbs for anyone who knew us. Married guy, sister-in-law. Scandal, betrayal, justice. Posts filled with vague accusations, quotes taken out of context, and a flood of opinions like they'd seen the whole thing unfold. They called me a man like this deserves to rot, questioned why more women weren't believed, dismissed me as trash. It was like I was at my own funeral, on the internet, where the crowd threw stones instead of flowers. By the 3rd day, my landlord texted, "Hey, sorry, just business, but the other tenants are concerned. You'll need to vacate by week's end." I blinked, then typed, "No problem, I'll be gone today." And I was, no arguing, no begging for more time or explanations. I understood now that when you're accused of something vile, especially a man, that's all most people see. The truth, it doesn't matter at first. They choose a side, and most pick the one that makes them feel better. A bakery down the street where I used to go every morning, Mrs. Place, used to greet me with a smile, handing me coffee and saying, "Back at it again, huh?" One morning I walked in like usual, only to see her freeze mid-pour. She looked at me, then stared down at the counter, mumbling, "We're closed today." Behind me, 3 people sat at tables. One whispered, "That's him." I didn't say a word, I just turned and left. By day 5, my phone was dead, a ghost. Tess had blocked me, so had her mom and all the friends I once invited over for wine nights or birthday parties. Tessa, her sister, her old friends, they disappeared from my contacts as if I'd caught the plague. I helped move a patio set once during she called me her most dependable man. But now she was posting on Facebook about wolves in family clothing, and I wasn't even human anymore. All that silence, all that shame started to crush me. I wanted to scream, post texts, screenshot everything, defend myself. But I had nothing. There was no proof, no secret meetings, no scandalous evidence, because none of it happened. But proof wasn't needed. The lie had already taken root. A friend from college called that evening, one of the few who hadn't ghosted me. "Hey man," he said cautiously, "did you really?" I cut him off before he finished. If someone known to me for 10 years had to ask if I was guilty, then I didn't want to hear his doubts. I checked into a cheap motel outside the city and stared at the stained ceiling for hours, my mind spiraling. How could a single sentence ruin everything? I thought about the moments I'd given freely, showing up early to family gatherings, helping with projects, building furniture, installing. Now I was a ghost, just a nightmare version of myself that everyone hated and forgot without guilt. There was no court, no trial, no official report, just an insidious story that grew in the dark, whispering lies that needed no sunlight. It's not justice, it's judgment, moralistic, superficial, easy to accept, played her part well. Rumors had it she received sympathy gifts, calls of encouragement, and her social media even listed her as a survivor broken heart. I felt like throwing up. Tessa didn't even bother to text me. When I checked my bank account, I saw I couldn't afford to stay there any longer. The severance was frozen, and whispers of legal action swirled around, even though I didn't understand the details. And that's when the real fear hit, worse than being hated. I was terrified of being forgotten, of being nobody, just a name buried under shame. I looked at myself in the mirror that night, barely recognizing the man staring back, patchy beard, dull eyes, guilt written all over his face. That terrified me because if I looked like that, what did I look like to everyone else? People say rock bottom hits all at once. It doesn't. It's a slow erosion, layer after layer, until you realize no one's coming to save you. And if you want to survive, you have to change everything. I packed a small bag, sold the rest of my belongings, bought a one-way ticket. No address, no plan, just away from the lie, from the slap, from the fire spreading while I stood burning. That morning I walked into a quiet travel agency tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. The place looked like no one had been there in years. When I asked for a ticket, the young woman looked up from her crossword and said, "Where to?" I hesitated. "Anywhere but here," I whispered. She thought I was joking, but I was. I didn't care where I was going, I just needed to go. That day, I boarded a bus heading to a town I couldn't pronounce, with a fake name and a duffel bag packed with my only remaining belongings. 2 changes of clothes, some boots, my old laptop, and a leather notebook filled with sketches and memories of who I'd been. The ride was long, silent. I watched the landscape shift, cityscapes giving way to dry fields, then forests, then an endless coastline. Somewhere along the way, I stopped keeping track of hours. I didn't sleep much, ate little, just stared and thought. It was strange, the kind of silence that follows an explosion. Not peace, more like numb fog. Guilt and confusion echoed louder in that void. I kept replaying everything, the slap, the lie, how everyone turned away so fast, like they'd been waiting for an excuse to hate me. I wondered if I'd ever seen in myself what they'd seen all along. Was I too quiet, too helpful, too easy to forget? When I finally reached my destination, the outside fog thickened. The bus was one of only 2 vehicles on a narrow coastal road. The driver pulled into a gravel lot. "Last stop," he said. That suited me. The town was tiny, remote, with no cell towers, just weathered wooden buildings that looked untouched since the 80s. There was a harbor with old, sleeping boats and an inn that also served as a diner. I carried my duffel, trying not to draw attention, and saw an old man sitting outside fixing a net. He looked up and nodded. I nodded back. I asked the innkeeper if they rented rooms weekly. She sized me up and said, "Cash only." I paid for 2 weeks up front and asked if she knew anyone looking for work. She shrugged. "Depends what kind," I said. "Anything that keeps you moving," she replied, pointing across the harbor. "Try the dock. Old man Ben hires folks to clean his gear. They don't ask questions, just give you gloves and a net and tell you to get to work." I got to work with no one judging or whispering, just a man with gloves and a task. I worked until my back screamed and my hands went raw. When I finished, I collapsed on the thin mattress in my room, staring at the ceiling until sleep took me. My days became routines. Wake, work, sleep, no internet, no news, no headlines, just fog, salt, sweat, and silence. I never revealed my real name. I went by Miles. Nobody asked. I didn't volunteer. Some nights I'd walk along the shoreline, letting the cold wind numb my face, or write fragments in my notebook, thoughts, words, bits of the old me I was trying to rebuild. In town, folks began greeting me without pity or whispers, just simple good mornings and nods. I started running every morning from a few minutes to 5 miles at a go. The pain felt purposeful. My lungs burned, my legs quaked. That struggle gave me something to hold on to. I fixed what was broken: gutters, sheds, boats. A woman named June asked if I could help update her website. I told her I wasn't a tech guy, but she insisted. I borrowed a library computer, watched tutorials, and figured it out. A shopkeeper needed help with her store, then another and another. Without realizing it, I'd shifted. I was still invisible, but by choice this time. I was the accused anymore, just Miles. the man with tools, with purpose, with no past dragging behind him. One night I watched the boat sway under a starry sky at the dock. It made me think about Tessa, about her face when she believed the worst. Did she miss me? Regret it? I pushed the thought away. That didn't matter anymore. What mattered was this moment, this quiet, this rebuilding from wreckage. The name Miles wasn't just a disguise anymore. It was a fresh start, something not borrowed but earned. Not long into that first year, Ben the fisherman had a stroke. His daughter came back to care for him. She was tough, no nonsense. One evening after closing the net shed, she asked, "You good with numbers?" I shrugged. "Decent," I said. She tossed a salt-stained notebook on the table. "Try making sense of that." It was Ben's messy inventory, half remembered, half writ. I stayed up that night reworking his books, organizing receipts, sorting expired permits. Next morning I handed her a neat spreadsheet. Her eyes widened. "You did this overnight?" I nodded. She looked at the screen. "Ever think about doing more than just fixing stuff?" I hesitated. The truth, coding, building websites, designing had always interested me. Back in my previous life, I'd been too busy playing the dependable guy to explore it. But here, I had the time. That night, I registered a domain. Com, not my real name, just enough to honor what I'd lost and who I was trying to become. I started small, helping local businesses with websites, the flower shop, a boat rental, client work flowing in quietly. I rented a tiny workshop on the town's edge, bought second-hand gear, and every screw I turned reminded me I was still here, still capable. Without planning, I became the town's unofficial tech guy. Word spread. A guy from 2 towns over showed up, needing help launching an online store. A retired teacher wanted a blog. A young mom asked for a recipe site. I never said no, just fair prices. People never asked where I was from, just liked my work. I even sponsored a local race, printing A.M. Reeves Tech on the runners' bibs. One day I found myself presenting a digital system to the town council, showing how it tracked repairs. Standing there, once accused, now celebrated, in a room full of strangers who knew nothing about my past. I left that night and went to the harbor, watching the water glow like gold as the sun dipped behind cliffs. I took off my shoes, stood in the sand, and let the tide touch my toes. I cried not because I was sad, but because I had proven I could do what I once thought impossible, rebuild a piece of myself from nothing. Every step forward, a whisper from the past echoed. I still dream of the day, the slap, the look on Tessa's face, her brothers dragging me out like trash. I wake sweating, heart pounding, half expecting a note taped to my door or a mob with torches. But no one comes. People don't chase ghosts, I realized. I'd become one by choice. My secrets, I kept them close. The notebook where I once scribbled pain now held plans, wireframes, checklists. Hidden inside its back cover was a tiny USB drive, something I carried everywhere. It contained a recording I received 6 months after I disappeared, forwarded by someone who didn't understand its weight. There was voice, mocking, confident. He did it because I hated how perfect he seemed. He looked at me like I was nothing, so I made him nothing, she said. I'd only listened to it once. No tears, no screaming, just proof that the world had twisted itself into a lie. I backed it up, locked it away, not for revenge, but to remind myself that what I'd heard was real, that the damage wasn't just in her words but in how far the truth had fallen. Healing doesn't look like a dramatic moment. It's subtle, tiny victories, fixing a site, helping a neighbor, sharing a quiet smile. One afternoon, about a year after everything fell apart, a local school asked me to talk about digital resilience. I didn't mention betrayal or lies, only starting over, losing everything and choosing to learn. One boy asked, "How do you stop being angry at those who ruined you?" I smiled. "You don't," I said. "You stop feeding their power. You build a life so full they can't squeeze into it." That night I sat on my porch gazing at the stars blinking above. I thought about the man I used to be, how he once stared, stunned, with a coffee cup in hand, watching his life fall apart over a lie. I didn't recognize him anymore. He'd been too soft, too eager to please, believing love was owed rather than earned. Now I choose my time, my trust, and my silence. Tessa asked long ago if we could ever find a way back. I didn't answer then, if she asked me now, that man you were married to, he's gone. The one who didn't ask questions when he got slapped, that man died the moment she did it. Now I don't belong to her story anymore. I've written a new one. People think survival is an ending. It's just the beginning. Once you realize you can survive being erased, you start to wonder, what could I become if I stopped chasing approval and started being true to myself, my voice, my worth? I don't live for validation anymore. I live for the version of me I nearly lost, the one who pieced himself back together in the dark, shaping something new. My name is Miles, once accused, beaten, erased, yet I didn't stay buried. I came back not to prove anyone wrong or to seek revenge, but simply to choose who I wanted to be. And now the only name I answer to is mine, proud, full, without apology. After listening to this story today, maybe some questions came up or old memories resurfaced. Every day on, new stories connect us all, each one a unique journey. And every story reminds us, we're all human, sometimes happy, sometimes hurting, always learning. If you enjoyed this, share it with your friends. Your thoughts matter, they inspire us to tell better stories. Every story has a perspective. We aim to understand each one to make our content diverse and real. These stories reveal that everyone's path is different, and by listening, we learn something new. You can even share your own experiences. And if you enjoyed this video, leave feedback. It helps us improve and find new angles. This was just one example of how storytelling connects us, how we all understand life through shared stories. We'll keep sharing these moments because they help us all grow. Thanks for your time. Keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. Please like and follow. Your support keeps us going. And until next time, take care and stay curious.